Welcome to episode 59 of What Happens Next, the podcast designed to help you plan, prepare, and live better in your 50s, 60s, and beyond. And today I want to talk about why thinking about the way that we want to live our lives and planning, preparing internally and mentally for the way we live our lives is a really important thing to do, because life's busy. Often when we speak to people at my financial planning practice, Savello, and whilst I'm interviewing people for What Happens Next, and just talking to friends, family, and everybody else, we are increasingly busy. But the challenge we've got is increasingly busy means that we don't think about the life we want to live and create the headspace we might need to properly plan and prepare from the next chapter of our lives. And in this video, I share 4 really super clear strategies you can use to create the headspace you need to work out your ideal what happens next. Hopefully you enjoy it. The reality is you can't pour from an empty cup. And in this video, I want to talk about the 4 ways, if you're thinking about retirement or what happens next in your life, you can use to find headspace to make the right decisions for you. And number 4 is both shockingly simple and free. Now, it is true to say that you can't pour from an empty cup, but I don't know whether in the introduction to this video I should have used actual water, because both my legs and my desk now have got a thinly veiled element of moisture on it, which I'm trying to get used to. But anyway, welcome to What Happens Next. And in this video, I want to talk about the fact that so often we're wrapped up in our busy lives. It's really difficult to find both the time and the mental space to think about what happens next. And that's why so many of us, if we're in our 50s and 60s, find ourselves at that retirement cliff. We're reaching an age where we feel that we should retire, or the frustration of what we're doing or dislike of what we're doing is making us think about how we can make positive change. But before I talk about that and the 4 ways to really find the headspace to work out what happens next in your life, I want to tell you about What Happens Next. Because What Happens Next is a channel designed to share ideas, interview experts, and talk about concepts that are going to help you think about what happens next in your life. My desire is to help you have the most successful next chapter of your life as possible, and we're going to be doing as much as we can to support you to do that. Now, why am I the person to do that? The answer is I'm not, because what I'm going to be doing is getting loads of experts to help me. But I have got some insight, because my name's Chris Dames, and for 20 odd years, I've helped people retire successfully. I'm a chartered financial planner and run my own chartered financial planning practice called Savello. We're on the Essex coast down in Southend now, and I love what I do. But interestingly, a lot of the conversations we have aren't only about money. They're about life. They're about purpose. They're about meaning. They're about maintaining well-being on a broader sense. And what we want to do on What Happens Next is talk about some of those subjects. The challenge we face is busyness, because often when we're thinking about what happens next in our lives, and I've seen it with my clients time and time again, the day-to-day takes over. And what I want to do is, in this video, talk about the 4 ways that I've seen that people can find the headspace and really truly think about what they want to do next. Now, the idea here is that we want to create some psychological distance from our day-to-day existence. We want to make sure that we can make better decisions about our future. And, I get it. I've heard plenty of times people say to me, yeah, Chris, that's easier said than done. You don't realise how busy my life actually is. but here's 4 ideas that are going to help you work out what happens next in the most successful way possible. But before I start talking about these 4 ways, I need a favour. What I'd like you to do is like this video and subscribe to the channel. As I said earlier, my mission is to support people like you think about what happens next in their lives. And by liking this video and subscribing to the channel, it helps me deliver really good quality content in a consistent way, invite more expert guests, and actually deliver on my promise to you, which is giving you ideas that are going to help you have a successful next chapter in your life. So, without further ado, let's talk about these 4 ways that you can find the right headspace to deliver on what you need in your next chapter. And number 1 is take time to learn from others' experiences. The good news is that there's plenty of people who have retired before you or looked at the next chapter of their lives before you. And there's always lessons to learn, both good and bad, when we're thinking about what happens next in our lives. And what we've tried to do on the What Happens Next channel is share some of those insights through expert guests who have been on that retirement journey, either early in that retirement journey, and sharing their mistakes, what they'd change and how they'd do it differently, and talking about the issues you need to consider, but also individuals who have done it successfully. So, how do you do that? How do you take the time to learn from others' experiences? Number 1, you can see in your social circle who's retired or have moved on to the next chapter of their life, and invite them for a coffee and have a chat. That's probably the most direct and easy way to really understand what they've learned through that journey. And my experience is that often we focus on the financial side. We know the money element of retirement or whatever happens next is important, because financial independence allows us one really important thing: choice. And we need that. What I often find is that people underestimate the other factors. How do I find purpose in my life when I'm not doing my full-time job? What do I do to maintain physical well-being? If my social connections were at work, how do I make sure that I continue to maintain them? Part of the issue we've got when we're thinking about what happens next in our lives is having the self-awareness, having the introspection to be able to think about what the gaps in our well-being are. And we're doing loads of work at the minute with What Happens Next to build solutions that are going to help you think about well-being in a nuanced way when you're thinking about how it applies to your life. One of the first things we've built that you can use today is our What Happens Next quiz. It's free to do, takes about 5 minutes, but what it will do is give you an insight into the areas of strengths when it comes to your well-being and the areas you might want to improve. You can take the What Happens Next quiz at whathappensnext.life/quiz, and I hope it helps you in your journey to work out what happens next for you. And they're all things we talk about on this channel. However, there's a lot to be learned from finding people you know who have gone through that journey, and ask them, what did you do well? What did you plan and prepare for well? But what would you change if you did it again? The other way to learn from others' experiences, as I say, is to watch the videos on this channel. It's not only me talking about some of the elements that you need to consider. We've got loads of interviews with experts to help you work out what happens next. Number 2 is get a coach. Now, when we're talking to people close to us about retirement or what happens next, they're all with the best intention going to try and help you as much as you can, but there's a problem. They've all got their own opinion about what you should do. And we're all guilty of living our lives through the stories we tell ourselves about the world. We all do it. And for the people we love and care about, we're also guilty of telling stories about their lives. However, My experience is that often what you need is an independent perspective and somebody to challenge you and ask you the right questions about what you want to do next to make sure that your perspective is informed by how you feel. And this is where coaching comes into play. Because a good coach will give you the headspace, will provide you with the space to think about what you actually want and can support you to uncover your values, your purpose, and help you decide on that next natural step. Now, our loved ones, with all the best intentions, try to do that. But as I say, because they're going to have an opinion on what's going on, then they haven't got that independence to help and support you with that. And a good coach will. Ultimately, working with a good coach on a relatively regular basis, while sure working out what happens next, is about two things. It's giving you a space where you can think about what you truly want, but also it's having a useful and independent thinking partner to guide you through the process. However, whilst the coach can give it a psychological distance, sometimes, in my experience, having physical distance from the day-to-day can also be helpful. So number 3 is retreats. And often changing our physical environment changes our stress levels, mood, and can have a direct impact on our levels of creativity. And that's why one of the ways you can use to support your journey to what happens next is to take yourself away, go on a retreat, and work out what happens next without being close to those distractions of day-to-day life. And there's a bunch of different options when it comes to retreats. There's day retreats, there's short weekend trips in your country of choice. But if you wanted to really change your environment, I know that there's retreats that are run in far-flung places around the world, all designed to do one thing: give you the physical and mental space to make those decisions about that next chapter. And often the good retreats are hosted by facilitators who are also expert coaches. So you typically get the double win. You get the coach to support you through that thinking journey, but you're also in a physical space where you can think and be creative about that next step in your life. And during one of my brilliant What Happens Next interviews, not brilliant for me, but brilliant for the guests that we bring on, we had the amazing Hilary Rowland and Peter Hyson, who talked about the retreats that they ran and how they support people in the next chapter of their life. We're going to put a link to that interview in the comments below. I hope you enjoy it, and there's a lot to be learned from Peter and Hilary's experience. Because one thing that retreats do that's really important, it allows us to shift perspective, and changing our environment allows us to do that a lot easier. But there's a problem. Retreats and coaching are potentially expensive. So what's a low-cost way or no-cost way we can start thinking about what happens next? And that brings me on to number 4. Actually, before we move on to number 4 and talk about the free way you can really find the headspace to think about what happens next or retirement in your life, I want to offer you something for free. We've got a quiz on the What Happens Next website. You can find our website at www.whathappensnext.life. That quiz is designed to help you understand where you are in terms of well-being in a number of areas of your life. As I say, it's free. You can do it today. It will take 5 minutes. And for completing the quiz, you get a report that looks at every aspect of your life, the areas that you're really strong in, but the areas you might want to improve. And to do that, simply pause this video, click this QR code below, and you can do that as a gift from me and the team at What Happens Next today. Let's move on to number 4. And that's talk to yourself by starting a diary. Now, I know that when I journal, and I journal every morning just on my computer, writing words about what I think about the day, something really interesting happens, because actually I'm always brutally sometimes honest about my own thoughts in my own diary. And it's interesting. I love to write for one reason. It gives me clarity. It gives me clarity of thinking that nothing in the world does. By clarifying my thinking, that also allows me to really think about what I actually want. And you can do this at no, or if you want to buy yourself a new notebook to do this, at a minimal cost. So, if a coach or a retreat seems a bit too much now, but you want to start thinking about your retirement or what happens next, start a journal. My recommendation would be to make it a regular practice, and certainly writing about what you want in the next chapter of your life and the small incremental steps you're going to take to get there is certainly going to help that journey. And in this video, I want to talk about journaling, the power of journaling, why it's helped me and why it might help you too. Thanks for watching this video and have a lovely day. I hope that was useful. Thank you for listening, and I love your comments. So what are you enjoying about the What Happens Next podcast? What could you benefit from hearing more of? What don't you like? Because the feedback is always good in that regard. And I really hope that you're getting bucket loads of value from listening to our interviews and to our insights. Have a lovely day, and we'll see you on the channel soon. Bye.